Seeker. There is a feeling inside you that won't go away. A mute certainty that there is another floor to your life waiting. A level where you breathe differently, sleep differently, speak differently, earn differently, and above all, recognize yourself differently. You feel this place as if it were an inch from your chest. And yet, every time you reach out to grasp it, something pulls you back. It's not laziness. It's not a lack of information. You've already read. You've done therapy. You've cried everything there was to cry. You've already understood your parents, forgiven what needed to be forgiven, recognized yourself in 1,000 books, 1,000 videos, 1,000 audios, and yet, at the exact moment your life should turn, you freeze. You freeze in your body. You freeze in your chest. You freeze in an anxiety that no one sees from the outside, but which lives inside you like a tenant who refuses to move out. This video wasn't made to console you. It was made to show you, by name and surname, what is stopping you from crossing this invisible line. Carl Jung spent decades observing this same phenomenon in intelligent, sensitive, spiritual people, and he reached a conclusion that no one tells you. The blockage you feel is not a lack of faith, it is not a lack of method, and it is definitely not a lack of worthiness. It is something else, something much older, much dirtier, much more intimate. And that is exactly what you are going to understand in the next few minutes. If you hold on until the end, you will leave here with the most precise reading key you have ever received on why your good life stopped before it began. The feeling you describe, this being on the verge, this it's coming, this there's more for me somewhere, has a technical name in Jung's work. It was the pressure of the self. It is your psychic totality screaming to be born and your ego holding the door shut with both hands. You feel exactly this when you wake up at 3 in the morning with a restlessness that has no cause. You feel this when you see someone less prepared than you get an opportunity that should have been yours, and instead of anger, you feel a strange relief, because deep down, you didn't want to have to handle it. You feel this when you sign the contract, when you start the relationship that could be the definitive one, when you receive the invitation that would change everything, and out of nowhere, really out of nowhere, your body decides to collapse. Headache, panic attack, absurd fight with someone, falling ill, a fatigue that seems to have fallen from the sky. This is the limit that no one explained to you. It is not an external limit. It is a psychological membrane, a thin, almost invisible layer between who you have been until today and who you were born to be. And this membrane does not yield to reading. It does not yield to mantras. It does not yield to good intentions. It yields when you understand the exact mechanism that sustains it. And as long as you don't understand this mechanism, you will continue doing the same circular dance: insight, excitement, retreat, frustration, new insight, new excitement, new retreat. Do you recognize yourself in this choreography? You know you do. And here begins the uncomfortable part. Jung described in various moments of his work a very specific profile of patient. It wasn't the patient in open crisis. It wasn't the schizophrenic. It wasn't the suicidal. It wasn't the textbook case. It was the patient who appeared fine to the world, but was stuck on the inside. The person who had done everything, had read everything, had analyzed their childhood, mapped their shadow, recognized the archetypes, forgiven their mother, forgiven their father, left toxic relationships, changed professions, and yet lived in an interval, in a hallway, in a psychological purgatory. The old life no longer fit, but the new one wouldn't come. And the patient would spend years in this limbo, spending money on therapy, on courses, on retreats, on books, and life wouldn't move an inch. Jung realized something terrible about this profile. This type of person was more trapped than the patient in open crisis. Why? Because they thought they had already done the work. Because she took pride in being conscious. Because she used her own evolution as anesthesia. Do you recognize yourself there? You sit in front of your bookshelf of self-help books and feel a weariness that isn't physical. You open your journal and realize you've been writing the same thing for 3 years using different words. You go to a new therapy, a new course, a new retreat, and deep down, deep down, you know you are looking for the next dose of I am progressing, so you don't have to take the real step. The ready but trapped patient is not stuck out of incompetence. They are stuck because they turned the path into the destination. They became a collector of insights, a tourist of their own psyche. And the worst part, they think this is a virtue. Jung wrote, almost brutally, that these people were further from healing than those who hadn't even begun, because they had built an entire identity around working on themselves. Stripping away this identity hurts more than facing the original shadow. Because if you are no longer the eternal seeker, who are you? That question paralyzes more than 1,000 traumas. And that is why I need to tell you something directly. This video will not solve your blockage. No video does. Free content only maps things out. It shows the terrain. But no one crosses the desert by reading a map of the desert. That is why I prepared the Código do Despertar, a resource that is not just another course for you to add to your collection of "I'll watch it later." It is an instruction manual for your psyche, anchored directly in the work of Jung, divided into 60 days, with one lesson per day, one surgical question per day, one micro-action that enters your body, and guided writing that reorganizes your unconscious in real time. It is not theory. It is not another layer of information for you to accumulate. It is the practical path for you to leave eternal preparation and enter real movement. The material was built to reprogram your nervous system, shield you against the narcissistic manipulation of your own ego, and teach you how to decipher the hidden language of your dreams and your symptoms. You will find everything in the first pinned comment, right below this video. And if you are ready to stop postponing your own life, leave a comment here saying only "EU Atravesso." This comment is a symbolic commitment. Your psyche listens to what your hand writes. This small action already begins to break the spell. Now you need to understand where this membrane is born. Because as long as you don't understand the origin, you will continue fighting ghosts with paper swords. The blockage that keeps you from leveling up was not born in you as an adult. It was installed in you as a child, and it was installed out of love. That is the part that destroys. It wasn't malice, it was survival. It wasn't conscious sabotage by your parents or caregivers. It was your own nervous system, still in formation, making protection calculations that seemed at the time perfectly logical. When you were small, your nervous system made a very simple equation. It observed the environment. It observed who was happy in your house. It observed who was visible. It observed who shined. And it realized in seconds that being happy, being visible or shining brought consequences. Maybe your mother became competitive when you laughed too loud. Maybe your father became irritated when you got top grades and your brother didn't. Maybe your grandmother said that a child who is too happy is a child without sense. Maybe you saw your father go bankrupt and had the childish perception that money destroys families. Maybe you saw your mother grow old, tired, and you decided without realizing it that a successful woman ends up alone. Maybe you felt the icy silence of your father when you talked about a big dream and learned in 3 seconds that dreaming big leads to emotional abandonment. These observations were not thoughts. They were biological impressions. They were recorded in your body before you had the words to process them. And your nervous system made a silent promise to protect you. It decided that happiness brings risk, that abundance brings envy, that visibility brings punishment, that growing means losing the love of those who are below you. Today, at 30, 40, 50 years old, you still obey that promise. You sabotage money so as not to lose your original group. You sabotage your relationship so as not to betray your mother's sadness. You sabotage an opportunity so as not to stand out more than your father managed to. And you call it bad luck, a bad cycle it wasn't meant to be? No, it was meant to be. You are the one fulfilling an oath you don't even remember making. Jung called this, in practical terms, unconscious loyalty to the clan. It is the technical name for the reason why you self-sabotage every time you are close to symbolically surpassing your parents. Your body prefers the familiar family poverty over solitary abundance. Your body prefers the usual pain over new joy. And until you undo this pact at the nervous system level, you can read Jung in the morning, meditate in the afternoon, and do therapy at night, but nothing will unlock. Because you are not fighting against a thought, you are fighting against a loyalty. And loyalty is not defeated with arguments. Loyalty is defeated with a farewell ritual. And this is where your body enters the scene as the absolute protagonist. You need to stop treating self-sabotage as a character flaw. It is not. It is a biological function of your nervous system doing exactly the job it was designed to do. Think about it. When you get close to a major change, what happens to your body? You get sleepy at the wrong time. You get that strange hunger at 10 at night. You fight with someone in your house over an idiot reason. You get sick exactly during the week of an important deadline. You forget things you never forget. You fall into a 3-hour infinite scroll you cannot stop. You make an impulsive decision that ruins months of building. You discover, out of nowhere, a new series to binge-watch exactly on the weekend you decided to study. This is not weakness. This is your nervous system entering protection mode. It detected a movement that threatens homeostasis, that is, the known balance, and triggered every available escape valve to bring you back to what it identifies as safe. And it identifies as safe everything that is familiar, even if the familiar is miserable. The nervous system does not differentiate between good and bad. It differentiates between known and unknown. And the unknown, even when it is good, is interpreted as a mortal threat. That is why it is so common to hear reports of people who, at the exact moment they get what they always wanted, have a crisis. The person closes the contract of their dreams and has an anxiety attack. The person starts the relationship of their dreams and starts looking for faults in their partner. The person moves to another country and starts to feel a melancholy that has no rational explanation. These reactions are not signs that the choice was wrong. They are signs that the nervous system was not prepared to host the new reality. And without this preparation, the body pushes you back. You are the driver, but the body is the chassis, and an old chassis cannot sustain a new engine. You can change the engine 1,000 times. If the chassis is not updated, the car keeps running slowly and making strange noises. Surgical reminder before we continue. O Código de Despertar was designed exactly for this, to update your nervous system while your mind understands. 60 days of calibrated micro-actions so that your body accepts the new reality before the ego sabotages it. Everything in the first pinned comment. Decide now. You open it, or you keep postponing this decision for the 1,000th time. And this body update is what separates those who keep spinning around the same problems their whole lives from those who effectively moves to a higher level. Those who change are not those who understand more. It is those who train the body to tolerate expansion. Training the body to tolerate expansion is different from meditating. It is different from deep breathing. It is different from making affirmations in the mirror. Training the body to tolerate expansion is, above all, identifying the specific trigger that sets off your protection mode and deactivating that trigger in a systematic, repeated, calibrated way. It is a cabinet maker's work. It is not a poet's work. That is why many people spend years in poetic self-knowledge and never reach operational self-knowledge. Beautiful to talk about, ineffective to live. And here comes the most hidden layer of all, the layer that no one wants to see, because you believed your whole life that the reason you didn't change was fear. Fear of the unknown, fear of failing, fear of not being able to handle it. But Jung showed that there is something deeper than fear. There is loyalty. There is a type of silent, sacred, ancestral fidelity that ties you to the world from which you came. You do not want to betray your own, and this non-betrayal costs you your life. Think of a scene. You're at a family gathering. You see your aunts and uncles talking about the same difficulties they have been talking about for 20 years. You see your mother complaining about the same fatigue. You see your father with the same defeated posture. You see your brother repeating the same relationship pattern. And a part of you, the rational one, wants to scream you can change. But another part of you, deeper, more ancient, decides right there in that exact moment that if it goes too far away, if it becomes too happy, if it earns too much money, it will become a stranger to them. And being a stranger to one's own family is biologically one of the oldest threats the human brain can process. Before civilization, being exiled from the tribe meant certain death. Your brain still operates on this logic. To it, symbolically leaving the family is a death sentence. So your body makes a silent choice that your mind does not even perceive. It decides to stay small enough to continue belonging. You allow yourself to earn what your parents earned, more or less. You allow yourself to have a relationship similar to the one you saw at home. You allow yourself to occupy a social position that scandalizes no one, and you swear that this is modesty. It is not modesty. It is a pact of loyalty to your past, written in the body, signed in emotional blood. And as long as this pact is in effect, you can read all the books in the world and your life will not change. Because your life is not stalled for lack of knowing. It is stalled by an excess of fidelity. The cruelest part is that breaking this pact turns you for a period into someone lonely. You begin to say things that no one from your origin understands. You begin to desire things that no one from your origin desires. You begin to refuse conversations that were once part of your routine. And the people from your origin feel it, even if you say nothing. They react. Some distance themselves. Some mock you. Some make scathing comments. Some fall ill. And you feel guilty for evolving. You feel as if you are harming those you love. This is the real test of individuation. It is not the test of the book. It is the test of the Sunday dinner table. It is the test of the family group chat on your phone. It is the test of the friend who has known you for 15 years and looks at you as if you had turned into someone else, and you know that yes, you have. Jung had a name for this process of crossing through this loyalty. He called it individuation. But individuation is not what is sold out there. It is not getting to know yourself better. It is not accepting yourself. It is not loving yourself. Individuation is a surgery. It is the psychic process by which you symbolically separate from the family system and the identity you built within it to finally become who you are. And this separation is, in essence, a death without a coffin, without a ceremony, and without a witness. You die to who you were without anyone being able to bury this version. You become, in the best sense of the word, an orphan of yourself. And that is why so many people get stuck here. Because entering the rich life, the full life, the life that is just within reach, requires mourning. You will no longer be the troubled child that the family understands. You will no longer be the friend who joins in on any gossip. You will no longer be the partner who settles for crumbs. You will no longer be the person who hasn't quite made it yet. And this old identity, however limited it may have been, was a cocoon. It was a place of predictability. It was a safe fantasy that told you who you were every morning when you woke up. To leave it is, literally, to feel nameless for a while. Without a label, without a reference, without a social mirror. This interval between identities, Jung described as a crossing on the high seas with no sight of land. You have let go of the old shore, but the new shore has not yet appeared. And in this interval, your psyche goes through strange states. You feel like you are going crazy. You feel like you have lost all meaning. You feel a disconnection from the people who used to bring you joy. You feel a melancholy that has no objective reason. And most people, when feeling this, retreat. They run back to the old shore, they get sick, they take a job they know doesn't suit them. They return to a relationship they know is over. They become better behaved, more humble, more down to earth. They become once again who they swore they would never be. And they call this personal betrayal maturity. Real individuation is not comfortable. It requires you to sustain the void, to stay in the interval without panicking, to accept being nobody for a period, in order to finally be somebody for real. And that is why most intelligent, sensitive, conscious people, with all the world's knowledge, still stop at the gate. Because the gate requires a level of tolerance for the unknown that few have been trained to have. Your school didn't teach you that. Your family didn't teach you that. Your religion perhaps taught you the opposite. It taught you to cling to the known in the name of virtue. And that is where the component that no one wants to admit comes in. To pass through this gate, you will need to face something that no video, no book, and no shallow therapy will prepare you for. You will need to go through mourning, a real, dense, procedural grief. Not for the death of someone on the outside, for the death of yourself, of your old version, of the relationships that sustained that version, of the dreams that belonged to that version, of the strategies that version used to survive. All of this needs to die for the new to enter, and none of this dies with positive thinking. None of this dies with visualization. None of this dies with forced gratitude. The mourning for the old identity appears in strange ways. You find yourself crying while listening to some random song in the car, and you cannot explain why. You see an old photo and feel an absurd sadness for a person who no longer even exists. You pass by the house where you lived and almost faint from longing for a time that was objectively bad. You dream of people you haven't seen in years, and you wake up with a tight chest. You suddenly feel the urge to call someone who hurt you just to hear their voice. This is not nostalgia. This is your psyche burying piece by piece what it needs to bury to make room for the new life. Whoever does not go through this mourning stays stuck in the space occupied. There is no vacuum. For the new to enter, the old must leave first. And here lies a fatal error that the personal development industry has committed over the last 20 years. They convinced you that evolution is joy, that abundance is high vibration, that prosperity is lightness. A lie. Real evolution in the beginning is pain. It is a clean suffering with no victim, no culprit, no narrative. It is the suffering of the silent farewell to who you were. Whoever skips this stage, whoever denies this mourning, stays trapped in eternal loops of it hasn't come yet. Because the space, the new is still occupied by the old. And the universe, life, the self, whatever you want to call it, does not fill space that is already occupied. This is the last warning I can give you within this video. Everything you have heard up to this point is a map. To truly cross over, you need a daily step-by-step guide with the right emotional structure so that this grief does not swallow you halfway through. O Código do Despertar was built with this exact purpose. 60 days for you to go through the symbolic death of your old identity without getting lost in the process. With a daily lesson, with micro-action, with a surgical question, with guided writing. Everything anchored in Jung, translated to contemporary reality, with practical application that enters your nervous system. First pinned comment. You are an adult. You know what you need. Responsibility now stops being the contents and becomes yours. Every day you push off is another day you spend standing at the gate wondering why your life isn't moving. You can continue accumulating videos, or you can finally do it. And I will give you the final truth, the one no one has told you with the clarity with which I am going to tell you now. Most people watching you, and probably you included, have confused preparation with arrival. You think that preparing to change is changing. It is not. You think that understanding the problem is solving the problem. It is not. You think that reading about individuation is becoming individuated. It is not. You think that feeling the desire to change is starting to change. It is not. You have confused the gesture of picking up the map with the act of walking. And you spent years of your life looking at the map, thinking you were moving forward, while your feet never left the living room rug. The rich, full, expanded life that you feel a centimeter away from your chest is not waiting for you to feel more ready. It is not waiting for you to finish processing one more trauma. It is not waiting for you to read one more book. It is not waiting for you to reach a level of inner peace that justifies your entry. It is waiting for only one thing: your permission. The silent permission at the deepest level of your body that you can live this without needing to suffer more first. That you don't need to pay any more prices. That you don't need to prove anything else, not to the dead of your family, not to the living who watch you, not to yourself. This permission is the missing key, and it does not come with more study. It comes with an act, a symbolic, deliberate, conscious act in which you stand up from the chair of eternal preparation, close the book, close the tab, and cross over. Crossing over can be a small decision you have been putting off for months. It can be a conversation you know you need to have. It can be a yes you have been swallowing. It can be a no you have been chewing on. It can be a purchase. It can be a resignation. It can be a trip. It can be a piece of writing. It doesn't matter what. It matters that the act carries the symbolic weight of, I am no longer preparing, I am living. You know now what is stopping you. You know that the limit is not external. You know that fear is not just fear, it is loyalty. You know that the body protects you from what it doesn't understand. You know that there is a necessary grief. You know that individuation is separation, and separation hurts. You know that the new life is waiting for a permission, not a performance. So the problem, from this moment on, ceases to be information. The problem becomes a decision, and a decision is not something you plan for eternally. A decision is executed. And this is where this video ends. But your life continues. You can close this screen, go to sleep, and wake up tomorrow exactly the same. You can call what you feel a phase. You can call your paralysis patience. You can call your stagnation a divine cycle. You can call your cowardice spiritual waiting. Language is generous to those who do not want to act. It will always offer you a prettier word to disguise what is happening. But your body knows. Your pillow knows. Your 3 in the morning knows, and you know. The guide is below. The first pinned comment. 60 days. No mystery, no magic promise. Only the real work in the right order, at the right pace, with the right depth. Anchored in Jung, no beating around the bush. You cross through, or you keep describing the gate to whoever asks you why your life still hasn't moved forward. The choice from now on is no longer mine. It is yours. Decide.